Now they are putting MSL Junior, Senior, Field Medical 1 and 2, which didn't happen before. So it's trickier to make a range, but I would say in general, MSLs are anywhere from 95 to 125 as a starting salary. Medical advisors are anywhere from 110 to 135 as a starting salary. And medical writers are usually in the range of 70 to 90,000. As you can see, all of the salaries are more than what a postdoc makes nowadays. So when people are commenting on the lack of prestige, for instance, remember, this is just the beginning. As you can see, probably during those 10 years, I changed jobs maybe 6 times. So the career progression when you do a good job is very nice and rather quick. So I wouldn't be too hung up on the initial salary or the title if it's fancy enough. If it's a job that you like and you are working with people that are collaborating with well, I think that's the best thing that you can wish for.
Welcome to this new episode of Beyond the Thesis with Papa PhD. Today, I have the great pleasure of having in person in the studio Rayana Luna, your MSL coach. It's really, really great to have you here. You've driven all the way from Toronto. Of course, you're going to spend the weekend in Montreal. It's just a great pleasure that you could actually because I know how long it is to do this ride, that you could, find a moment to actually come to the studio. I'm having more and more fun recording here, and you see that it's a process, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's a great experience for us who are here, but also then for the people who watch and who listen to the episode. So
thank you for having me. You have a beautiful studio. Congratulations.
Thank you. Rayana Luna has over 10 years of experience in medical affairs, including multiple leadership roles in medical affairs. She's now focusing on her consulting business, which I mentioned at the beginning, your MSL coach. And it's a company supporting individuals with their industry transition. So we're talking from PhD to MSL, things like that, but not only. We'll talk about that because that space is wider than just the MSL position. Also, she works with companies with their field medical excellence initiatives and also with digital medical affairs innovation initiatives. So it's really interesting how all of this kind of stems from your experience working for over 10 years in that space and learning what it is, what the needs are in that space, but also learning what the needs are in terms of people transitioning from their scientific careers to that space. And it's often there that young researchers who are, let's say, within their PhD thinking of what's coming next, they don't know exactly what's out there. They don't know exactly how to address people in those spaces. And I think that's what you help people with. Actually, a past guest of the show, Claudia Belliveau, mentioned you and mentioned how the training with you had really kind of supercharged her career transition efforts. So, from all that I've said, I'll let you comment. But from all that I said, now I'm going to leave the microphone to you to maybe add something, maybe add some context to how you came to this, and I don't know, I felt that you had some comment maybe about Claudia.
No, not only Claudia, but all my mentees, they're extraordinary. I was counting before coming here, and last night I collected over 100 mentees in less than 6 months from 13 different countries. So most of them are US and Canada. But I'm very fortunate that my business is becoming more and more global. But one thing that you're saying that kind of sparkled my memory is that I've been in all those spaces. So I've been a PhD that was transitioning. I've been an MSL. I've been in the field. And I also transitioned to be a leader. So I was hiring those people. Yeah. So I was literally in all those spaces. That's why when people come to me either for their medical affairs needs or wanting to transition, I can help them with context that maybe not everybody has. So I feel very fortunate for not only my experience, but for all those people that I have a message that I send to people when they decide to do their training with me is thank you for trusting me with your career.
Of course.
So I think it's a powerful thing to support people and help people, and that has been a great pleasure for me.
Yeah, no, I can only, I can only imagine. I know that just like for me, just being these days, I think it's the time where different institutions, at least here in Montreal and well, here in Quebec, are having their like career panels and things like that. So I've had the honor and the pleasure of being in different events, and it's just having one person come and say, oh yeah, actually when I was finishing or I'm finishing, and this one episode that you did really helped me kind of feel less stressed. Like, there's nothing better than the feedback of people who needing help and us having exactly what they need to help them. So I totally understand where you're coming from on that side. Now, one thing that's always, the beginning of our conversations on Beyond the Thesis is, what was your journey? Because, you've been 10 years up to leadership positions in the medical affairs domain. So yeah, I think me and the people listening and watching would be curious to know what led you there. How was your navigation of those first conversations, of those first like hiring panels or things like that? Can you tell us some anecdotes or at least some little narrative of what happened to you?
My pleasure. And my mentees already know, people that have worked with me know I'm a very personable person and very open. So I'll do the same here. I will not try to play a role here. Mm-hmm. So I was just like any of you guys in my PhD doing cell biology and microscopy and working with mice. And to be honest, I was not aware of the role of the MSL or medical affairs. So I thought I would be a professor and I would teach and I would do research for the rest of my life. When a friend of mine told me that, and I'm forever thankful to her, back in Brazil, she said, oh, you help me all the time in trying to understand these drugs, and they're so difficult, and you explain such an easy way. I've heard that in this role in the industry, that you can make a lot of money. They give you a car, and you only have to explain science to doctors, and you don't have a sales quota. I was like, that's the best job ever.
Yeah.
And she was like, there is this position open, and I think you would do great. You should apply. I was like, okay. I did not know what was. That was over 10 years ago. I'm not from a big city in Brazil. I'm from a smaller city. So the opportunities there were even smaller. So I applied, and I got it, my first job. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm not saying that I was lucky, because only I know what I had to prepare for that. I had no idea what the interview was going to look like, how my resume. It was very intuitive of me. I always had a business mindset. I had little small businesses growing up where I would do this and that. And I think that has helped me to have this business acumen type of mindset. So the interview process is very similar to what it is now. Many interviews, hiring manager, HR, panel, scientific presentation. And one thing that I want to tell you is that a lot of people that reach out to me, they only have basic science experience. And in industry, most of the time, you need to have clinical knowledge, which I didn't. So I was up in the night until maybe 2 a.m. trying to research and trying to understand those trials. And I had a friend of mine that did clinical research. I was calling her. That's just say, take advantage of your network, of your friends, of people that know more than you, or maybe just have a different knowledge set than you. If it wasn't from that friend that told me about the position, if it wasn't from this friend that helped me with the clinical part, maybe I wouldn't be here. That's why I make sure to help as many people as possible along the way. So I did the interview, I joined, and my advisor at the time my PhD advisor, because I didn't finish my PhD when I got the position.
Okay.
I still had 6 months in.
Okay.
And I told her, and she was like, I don't know. And I was like, I promise I'll finish. I promise I will do that. So I had a deal with my my manager and my advisor that I said, I told my manager in pharma, thanks to him as well. Oh my God, best manager. I was like, you're going to even forget I have my PhD. I'll do in the weekends, holidays, Friday afternoon. And I told my advisor I will defend on time. Don't worry. But during those 6 months, I didn't have a life. I was onboarding, traveling, and finishing my PhD literally 7 days a week. So when people say, oh, you're lucky, I think I was a little bit lucky in the sense that I was surrounded by people that supported me, but it was a lot of hard work. So that's my first message, which is the hard work doesn't start when you're joining. People think I made it. I joined the industry, that's it. The hard work is after you start, because that's when you start building your reputation within the industry, which is a small world. So showing your business acumen, showing how you connect with internal stakeholders, showing how you collaborate with the KOLs, it really comes a long way. And that is going to foster all the other opportunities that are going to come after that. So after that, very quickly, I started as a consultant, not really an MSL. Less than a year after, I was invited to join as an MSL. As an internal process. During the time that I was an MSL, the medical manager went to a different role doing a hiring freeze. So I was MSL and medical manager at the same time for 6 months, 10 months, I don't know. I just was collecting experiences and not denying work because I knew that would serve me in the future. And then I started collaborating with a lot of people. Forgot to mention, part of my PhD was here in Canada. So I always wanted to come back. And when I was traveling as medical manager, which was not really my job, I got to connect with all these people from North America, from the US, from Canada, from Europe, which you never know. 1 year after, I got my PR. I don't know, in the US is green card. In other countries are different denomination. And I told them I was leaving to come to Canada. And they said, no, we're going to find a way and to transfer me. And less than, I think, a month, I got a job in Canada. I arrived on Friday. On Monday, I started. So I believe that collectively, everything that I was doing at Pfizer in Latin America, or at the company that I was working, it really connected me to be here. So when I joined in Canada, I started as an MSL. They have different names, but it's pretty much the same thing. I had other responsibilities, and shortly after, I think a year and a half, less than 2 years, I got my first leadership position with no managerial experience, which was far-reach at the time that I applied for the position. People didn't really think I would get. But I think the connections and everything that I got letters of recommendation from KOLs, you never know. And this is when I realized I was a good interviewer. That was the feedback that I got. Not every good professional is a good interviewer. So you have to be able to brand yourself well, be very clear in what you're communicating in order to get the job. So I interviewed well. I got the first job. I was managing this amazing team of MSLs for close to 5 years. And this is when I started my passion to people's development and really trying to find the right tools to give to different people for them to thrive. You can't have the same tools for everybody. And this is when I realized that my passion was not necessarily medical affairs per se, was helping people And this is why I love so much what I do now. I had different positions, managed different MSL teams. I was also involved in a lot of digital innovation projects. We can talk about that as well. But since I started Your MSL Coach 6 months ago, I've been really, really happy in supporting many people around the world in trying to find their way into the industry. Many of them already have jobs in the industry, and I'm really grateful for this opportunity.
Wow, such a great journey, and I think there's a lot to unpack there, and it shows how people in contacts are super important. So I imagine that's also something you talk with your mentees about, the networking aspect. But one thing that you know, we went through your adventure in medical affairs, and I just have, and I know it's not exactly where we're going in the whole conversation, but one thing that I think young people who've just finished, let's say, a PhD in life sciences, whatever, or and are thinking of going into industry, one thing they are curious about, but also feel like a little bit, how can I say, stresses them a little bit, is what's the path of career evolution? What's, like to say, today in 2025, what's the name of the entry-level position that I should look for? And that brings to another question, which is, when you come with a PhD, often, anyway, I've seen this in people, their expectations are, in terms of salary, in terms of like, let's say, prestige of the position, is here, but the positions that are actually open to them are usually more entry level. Can you comment on that, and can you actually share a little bit of what, in terms of like today's like job position names, what it can look like, this progression that you had? Like the first one was consultant, and then. Yeah. What does it look like today? And also in Canadian dollars, is there kind of an average of salaries that you can say that people can expect getting in?
Some people might kill me for that. I'm kidding. Nothing that I'm saying here is you cannot find on websites, but I'm going to give a ballpark, which it might help people when they have that infamous question about salary expectations during the interview. I have a video actually on Instagram that has a very funny take on that. Currently, if you have what they call doctorate degree, which is PharmD, PhD, MD most of the time, and you're trying to join the industry, you have non-medical affairs roles and medical affairs roles. So I know multiple people that have a science background, that they work in marketing, that they work in regulatory affairs, in other areas. So the first thing that I would say is medical affairs is not the only way. However, it's the most common way where people join the industry. So let's focus on that. Medical affairs is the area in the industry where we are a supportive role into helping patients and helping physicians to get access to medications and get knowledge on a specific type of medications. Not every team has a large medical affairs team, but I would say the majority of companies have a medical affairs team. Medical affairs teams comprised by a leader, a medical director, or a VP, medical managers, or medical advisors. So the names that I'm saying are names that you can look for jobs. But I'm going from up to lower, so you guys have an idea where to look for. After medical manager or medical advisors, you have MSL managers. Sometimes in some companies that are smaller, medical MSLs are going to report to medical advisors, and they were not going to have the medical manager, MSL manager role. I wish I had like a whiteboard here to try to explain everything. And then you would have MSLs. One thing that we have to realize, and I do that a lot with my mentees, is that it's not only the job that you get and having that salary. It's a job that you're going to enjoy and actually thrive. So I do a skill game with them and say, are you a more outgoing person? Are you comfortable with unpredictable schedule? Or do you like more office-based? Because the roles that I have mentioned medical advisor, medical manager, director are all head office based, while they're working internally with what we call internal stakeholders, which are other teams within the pharma company, with marketing, with medical information, with regulatory, with pharmacovigilance, while MSL manager are more focused on external stakeholders, physicians, nurse practitioners, pharmacists. Anyone technically other than leadership roles can enter those roles directly from their background. However, because the competition has been raised a lot, it's getting difficult to, for instance, go directly. I know people that joined directly as medical managers back in the day, but now I would say the entry-level roles are MSL, medical fellow, which is different than medical intern. Medical intern is while you're doing your PhD, and you're going to do a summer internship of a few months. Medical fellow is after you finish your PhD, similar to a doctor's fellowship that goes to the hospital and is supervised. You have 1 to 2 years of supervised work where you're not going to make a lot of money, but you're going to earn experience. And I would say 90% of the medical fellows, they continue in the industry either as a medical advisor or MSL. So it's a great role to start. Another role that has been growing a lot and is flying under the radar for a lot of people is medical education. Are people that are responsible for doing educational events for HCPs, most of the time accredited medical events. This is a little bit lower than MSL, for instance, but it's a great way to join the industry, interact with KOLs, and have some experience and then grow. I always say try to join within medical affairs because you can grow more into medical affairs, like to stay in the same department. So people, very common question is, how about if I join as a rep?
Yeah.
A commercial rep. I'm not against. I think reps bring a great value. However, if you join, you're going to have experience, but it's commercial experience. And you're going to be tagged as commercial. So every time that you try to join as an MSL, for instance, they're going to say, oh, I don't know, maybe he's too commercial. So the few people that I've seen making the transition, they stayed as a rep for 5-10 years before making the transition. So if you're patient or if you like commercial, it's a great way, but don't expect that's going to be very quick. Another role that a lot of people don't know is medical information and medical writing. That can be within pharma company or healthcare agencies. Pharma companies hire these agencies to help them build marketing materials, and they need people with a PhD background or medical background to review them. So it's another way of having a foot in the door. So you asked about salary. I'm going to break down to you now. I haven't forgotten.
Okay.
So I would say, and put in the comments if I'm too far different, always it's based on my experience and colleagues and things that I know. It's not written in stone. But I would say medical partner or fellow would range anywhere from $60,000 to $80,000 a year in Canadian dollars. You can add maybe 10 to 20% of that more for US. What was the other one? Medical fellow, medical education in the same range, maybe a little bit more. Medical education 75 to 95. MSL, now they are putting MSL junior, senior, field medical 1 and 2, which didn't happen before. So it's trickier to make a range, but I would say in general, MSLs are anywhere from 95 to 125 as a starting salary. Medical advisors are anywhere from 110 to 135 as a starting salary. I think these discover and medical writers are usually in the range of 70 to 90,000. Once again, this is based on my experience and what I've seen and worked. But as you can see, none of the salaries, all of the salaries are more than what a postdoc makes nowadays. So when people are complaining or maybe commenting on the lack of prestige, for instance, remember, this is just the beginning. As you can see, like probably during those 10 years, I changed jobs a lot of times, not even because I applied or I changed maybe 6 times. So the career progression when you do a good job is very nice and rather quick. So I wouldn't be too hung up on the initial salary or the title if it's fancy enough. If it's a job that you like and you are working with people that are collaborating with well, I think that's the best thing that you can wish for.
Yeah. I guess, if you're having like already talking, I don't know, with the hiring manager or having your first interviews and you see that there's a good feeling, the culture works for you, try to negotiate your salary as best as possible, but allow yourself to maybe earn a little bit less than you expected to work with that team if they're a team you think is cool for you, because then you'll be able to grow to these other positions from within. If you stay outside, then there's nothing you can do because you refuse.
Yeah. I don't know if they're lying to me, but one thing that my team used to tell me is that one of the main reasons why we stay, because it's highly competitive. A lot of people get poached from other companies. I was able to stay pretty much with the same team, other than some promotions, for almost 5 years. And they say it's just because we love the people that we work with. And that makes it like nobody wants to have a miserable working day. So keep that in mind when you're choosing your career, because that's going to determine how successful you're going to be, not only in winter, but your career progression as well.
Yeah. Anyway, so I see here, like from, for entry level, you can start around 60, you can start around 70, 75, or if you go MSL 195, but it's a range, but it's kind of in a certain ballpark that I think is okay, and that people should feel okay if they land something there. Then of course salary negotiation, especially when you're a fresh hire, is a whole other can of worms. We could have a whole other interview on about that. Then of course there's also salary negotiation once you're evolving your career within a company. But I don't think that's something we're going to specifically talk about. I think what's important now here in our conversation is, to talk about, in your experience, what you've seen as being the obstacles for people being hired. One big one today, we're recording this April 2025, and politics and economy make it that there's hiring freezes here and there, left and right. The U.S. market, the U.S. academic space is in a huge turmoil, in a sense, and under attack in a way. But anyway, we're not here to talk about politics. But there's been better moments to be hired than today is. But if we forget that factor, I think for sure you can, from the top of your head, kind of list what are the main 2-3 things that are getting people to first not be called for an interview, and then also not be hired. And I'm starting with the negative, but then we're going to go to then how in your experience, how do you get people to rethink their CV, rethink their positioning, and learn those things like the lingo, etc. So what are, let's say, a handful of things that when we come straight from academia, we're most certainly doing wrong?
That's a very good question. I would say the first thing is that as PhDs, including myself, we do a horrible job in selling ourselves.
Just the word selling ourselves
Sell
is
is like you can, and I had that in the industry as well. MSLs can sell. MSL can sell. Everybody is selling something. If you have an argument with your spouse, you're selling your point of view on that point. If you're an MSL, you're selling the credibility of that data and how that's going to help the physician's patients. If you are, it's like, if you're looking for jobs, you're selling your ability to perform at that specific role that you're applying. And
when you're presenting your poster in a scientific conference,
exactly,
you're selling your data, your research. But selling, yeah, it's a word that has a bad connotation.
So I come here today to get that stigma down and say to you, if you're doing a bad job in selling yourself, don't complain if people are not buying you. And when I say buying you, is hiring you. So use the right words in your resume, in your cover letter, and mostly take advantage of LinkedIn. LinkedIn is your billboard of yourself. Some people don't even put a picture in their LinkedIn.
Yeah, the little gray.
So I
man.
think go to the basics. Make sure your about session is very clear and concise. Nobody wants to read a long session about everything that you did. I always say if you have to click see more, it's because it's too much. So be very clear what you do, what you're passionate about. Put a picture of yourself, put a background. And when you're writing a resume, everybody wants to you talked about this when Claudia was here, and I think you guys said very well, a 3D application. Managers are sick and tired of ChatGPT cover letters. We can catch that in 1 second. So be very honest. Talk about what you like to do. Not very personable, but things that you're passionate about. Why you're applying to this position in a very personal matter. Because I want to make a difference in oncology, because I had a friend that passed away from breast cancer, and that made me sparkle my ideas on doing more research in oncology. This is what people want to hear. And people are trying to be too robotic, and they think that's a huge mistake. And I'm sure they don't do that on purpose. They were trained to be like this during their PhD and during their research. So,
no, it's true. And I think there's something important you said. So don't put too much personal things on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is a business platform, but like you also said, if there's a personal experience, like someone you know dying from breast cancer, that has an impact on your professional interests and passions. You can mention it there, and then the other, like the beach partying and etc. You can put it on Instagram or another platform. It's true. So I think more and more young researchers are on LinkedIn, but the first time they get in, they are kind of looking around and thinking, do I really fit here? And then they don't put their picture right away. And I think, or
they don't post. Another thing that I say is that
you need to be present on the
if you're
platform.
not visible, you're not going to be remembered. So a lot of people say, my mentees, I give them targets. I say, I want you to add 200 people this month. Intentionally, there are techniques in how to add people in a nice way. And I want you to post 2 to 3 times a week. What am I going to say? I was like, just repost something that you like. A new paper, something from Health Canada, something from your MSL coach, or anyone that you like. Because as you guys notice, if you like or comment or repost, you're going to appear on other people's. And then make sure your headline speaks not to what you're doing, but what you want to do. So every time that you comment is going to say Rayana Luna, your MSL coach, is going to say this person, passionate about medical affairs and neuroscience. So these things are going to go to the back of the mind of hiring managers and recruiters, and they might reach out to you. So you need to be visible, active, connecting. That's another thing, is networking. You posted something about this recently, and people have a cringe about networking, and I think after the pandemic has been even worse in a sense that people don't know how to do that virtually. So that's another thing that I spent some time during the mentorships, is giving them tools and techniques and how to network without being, what's the word that I can use? Without asking too much, because hiring managers are getting messages from people saying, can I get 15 minutes of your time? Can you share me insight? Can you do this? Let's make a coffee. They don't have time for that. Although I do understand why people do that. So there are ways and ways in where you can thank someone for their connection, ask from one word of advice, depending on where that goes or the connections that you have. Later on, you might be able to meet them maybe in a conference, but as the first time that you connect with me, you're asking for 30 minutes of my time or insights. I think people should be more aware of the intricacies of networking virtually as well as in person.
And kind of the etiquette.
Exactly.
Yeah, no, and it's it's kind of a dance that you need to learn how to do. But I say if they are, at least if they got on the platform and they're asking maybe these 20, 30 minutes, at least I think they're doing something. So don't stop doing it completely.
Oh, yes.
Just because you're doing the right thing. Just, slower,
I would say. Okay, so I focused on what's going wrong. So maybe what I can do now is say, how can we fix some of these things? So first of all, have your LinkedIn ready, have a picture, have a good about session. And when you're connecting with people, make sure you're connecting. A lot of people just add random people. Make sure you're connecting with people in the field that you want to be seen or you want to join on the field that you are. So that's the main thing. I say intentional networking. The other thing is there is nothing wrong in connecting and asking people for time, just not as the initial conversation. I always say to my mentees, the first message should say, I'm this person, have experience in this. I'm looking forward to join medical affairs. Thank you for connecting. I think that's a nice touch and appreciating that person for adding you. Yeah. And if the person answers, then you can start a new conversation and say you have a great career. What's the one insight that you would have for me? Mm-hmm. And then if that goes, and if the person lives in the same city as you, and you can say, whenever you are in this area, please let me know. I would love to stop at the place of your convenience. So it's being delicate and being polite in a way that it's not only asking, and say, if there is anything that I can do, please let me know, offering that as well, because networking is a give and take. You can't expect that people are just going to give it to you. Last thing is, best time to network is when you don't need a job.
Of course. Oh my God. Thank you for saying that, because I can't say it enough. So this time, it wasn't me that said it. It was Rayana.
Yeah, a lot of people, they network intentionally with people in the company that are looking for the job, which, once again, is not a bad strategy. But nobody likes the feeling of being used or being sold something or being taken advantage.
No, of course.
For anyone. So I had this technique at 17 years old that I think I created myself, is that the first thing that they try, I say that it didn't fit them well. Mm-hmm. I was like, but don't worry, I'll find something that will fit. Because for a salesperson, everything looks good. The same thing for networking. And you come with a lot of compliments and say your career path is great, give me 30 minutes of your time. Mm-hmm. Nobody wants to have that feeling that they're being taken advantage. So offer something or be more smooth about that network. And another tip that I say is, if you're in the therapeutic area, for instance, your expertise is in vaccines. You know what are the 5 top companies in vaccines in Canada.
Yeah.
You can go to their LinkedIn page. There are different tabs. There's people under there. And then you're going to filter by medical affairs. There's going to have a list of people that work in that vaccine company that work in medical affairs. So you can add them, have a connection. Once they open an opportunity, you're going to already have connected with them. So there are multiple techniques and ways that you can make this more authentic and less salesy.
Yeah, less transactional.
Transactional, that's the word.
I agree. This all makes a lot of sense. Now you said a bunch of things, and so learn to sell yourself well, which is kind of advocating for yourself in a certain way. I think the young researchers who are now taking part in, let's say, 3-minute thesis, things like that. I think that's already helping them in that, because they're already learning that there's another way of talking about their research than being in front of their poster and just like saying, I'm just the human who did the data. The data are going to talk for themselves. A CV on paper does not talk for itself on its own. There's some part of the work that you need to do. There's also work that you need to do on the CV, and I'm sure you do this on the CV to change it from an academic CV where, yes, the data and the minutiae of what was done is really important, to a resume where it needs to be more the accomplishments, the storytelling, etc., etc. Now, we're talking about all of this. We've talked about numbers, a little bit about the kind of the gamut or the range of salaries in this space. One thing that actually I think is also going to help people, and that you're really well versed in it, is what does medical affairs do? So in a big pharma company, what is medical affairs responsible for? They're not, producing the drugs. They're not in the lab researching the drugs. They're not marketing, because you already said that marketing is something else. But also, Rayana said there are PhDs in marketing, so it could, and they have fun. And I know, I've met people and they enjoy it a lot. So don't, because of this kind of sales is icky type thing that we have often when coming out of academia, don't eliminate marketing. Because people are actually having great careers in marketing after academia. But what does medical affairs do? Take the starting point that you prefer. It can be top to bottom like you did before, or starting with the MSL and then going up. But I think people will appreciate knowing, okay, these salaries and this, and this evolution, what does it represent if I'm going to try to apply for one of these positions? What am I going to be doing?
What's going to be my day-to-day? And I love asking that to people in the interview. If you were interviewed by me, probably I asked this question to you. Some people reach out to me and say, I was interviewed by you 3 years ago. You were so nice. Now you're doing this. I want to do the mentorship. I was like, that's a good thing, that even though they didn't get the job, they still kept in contact. So the day-to-day of medical affairs in general is around science communication and science accuracy. So keep that in mind. And the other thing that keep that in mind is divided in 2 parts, head office and field. You're going to see those words when you're looking for the jobs. You're going to see field leader, field medical affairs, field medical advisor, MSL. So people that work inside, when I say inside, is office-based. They are more focused on science excellence and science accuracy. Okay. And I'm going to give you an example. I just gave you this example yesterday. So a rep cannot go to a doctor and have a slide that says, this drug brings life back. Mm-hmm. Because there's going to be someone from medical that's going to say, well, in the trial, Nobody was dead and brought back to life. So you cannot say that it brings life back. However, there were measures of quality of life that there were significant differences between baseline and end of the trial, as well as compared to placebo. And those results, with those results in hand, you can claim that this drug improved patients' qualities of life. So people from medical affairs, medical advisors are looking the accuracy of marketing data to make sure it's medically accurate and relevant. Also, they're working what we call top KOLs. So when we saw HCPs, that's another thing. People from pharma talking lingos. Yeah. And we think everybody knows, but we don't know. So HCPs, healthcare professionals, KOLs, key opinion leaders. KOLs have different ranges. It goes from regional KOL, national KOL, global KOL. Some people put in tiers. But medical advisors usually work with the top KOLs in the sense that we do advisory boards.
Okay. Just to clarify, KOLs usually are MDs?
Yes, we can also have pharmacists that are KOLs within their pharmacist group, because there are some education events or initiatives that are tailored to nurse practitioners.
Okay.
So it's any healthcare professional can become a KOL in that specific area. And how do we evaluate a KOL is how influential they are with their peers. So medical advisors are working in these documents, are training reps. They train the MSLs, and they are the collaboration between the local team and global. So every country has different clusters and different teams. So global is going to have more information on clinical trials that are coming, or other information about medical strategy. Medical strategy is pretty much the Bible of medical affairs that says per year what are the areas that we should focus on.
Okay.
So an MSL doesn't go out there and says whatever they want to say. Everything is thought about it, regulated, and heavily watched by compliance.
Okay.
So this is what head office medical affairs does in a nutshell. I can spend 3 hours talking about that. When you're talking about field medical affairs, it's pretty much taking all that strategy that was taught and bringing to the HCPs, bringing to the physicians. So what is the day-to-day is going to look like? Most of your time, I have another video on my Instagram talking about how you divide your time as an MSL. But most of your time is going to be between booking meetings and connecting with HCPs or their secretaries to book the meetings, educating yourself in the scientific data. Remember, you are considered an expert to a specialist. So the level of knowledge that they expect from you is extremely high. So sometimes for one meeting, you need to prepare for 2 days in order to answer the questions that they have. So it's very nerve-wracking. That's why I say if you're a very shy person and you get nervous socially, maybe MSL is not the best job for you, because you are challenged daily from different people, even from the secretaries or from HCP. So, which I don't want to say challenge in a negative way, but they expect that
they send you hard questions.
Of course, and because if they already knew the answer, why would they need you? So you're going to spend most of your time trying to book the meetings, educating yourself on the data, also connecting with internal people, with the medical advisors, if they have questions or a trial that's coming, and also attending conferences. Not every doctor can attend every single conference. So what a lot of MSLs do, as well as medical education, I mentioned that as well. They do conference updates and say, look, I went to this European conference. They have a slide deck and say, I would like to give you a highlight in 15 minutes. What were the things that were talked the most in this conference? And a lot of doctors appreciate that. So you're going to be educating doctors. You're going to hear a lot about how their patients are doing. However, a misconception is that we directly work with patients. We're not allowed to collaborate with patients. The very few interactions are with patient organizations, and that's heavily regulated as well. There are other people in the company that do that, most of the interactions are with HCPs in general, in different level, different needs. The last thing is collaborating with your commercial partner. So if a rep goes there and the doctor has a question that is off-label or is hard and the rep doesn't have the resources to answer, a lot of times they refer that to the MSL. And they go there and support whatever the doctor has. A renal impairment, how do I do the dosing in this patient that's older than 65? We do a lot of patient cases, but not in a clinical way. We bring all the evidence from the trials to support that doctor in treating specific patients or patient population. So literally, your day is going to be always different from the other. Because you're going to talk to different people, different needs, different projects. So if you like that type of routine and pretty much not having a routine, that's the job for you. I personally loved.
Yeah. And now that you've said that, I kind of understand why, people with research backgrounds are filling these positions, because you stay really close to the science. Of course,
Exactly.
It's the science related to treatments or to medical devices or whatever, but it's the science, it's the clinical trials, and the other cool aspect is you cannot predict these questions. They're going to be difficult, so you stay in that kind of, okay, I'm still doing a certain type of research. Of course, it's going to be, it's going to be to answer a specific question that an HCP sent you. But I understand why people would gravitate to this type of job if they really liked being in academia and really liked learning but also I also see how someone who's more introverted or like you said had having these like some social stress be a challenge is not the best fit for that type of position. But I imagine that if you are not like facing the HCP, like if you're not an MSL, if you are, in medical education, then this is not so much of an issue.
Yeah, and I think I actually have one person in mind that I'm not going to say names, that she was really shy when she joined, but she's super bright, probably one of the youngest people that I've hired. And she grew into the role, and 2 years after, she was a different person in a way that the job gave her the opportunity to really shine through and be more open to the social interaction. So I never say, like, don't apply. I more guide them towards one idea or the other, but be open-minded. That's another thing. In the industry, I always say, you can be here and you can be somewhere else. It might have a restructuring and say you no longer work with rare disease. Now you're an MSL for oncology. Or you're MSL manager. No, actually now we have an opportunity to be a director to work in strategy or to work in digital. So there is no guarantee of where you're going to land in 2 years or what are going to be the needs of the company. So I think one big thing is to be open-minded if and when you join the industry.
And to have a growth mindset, because this example that you gave is really, it's really telling, and it really, to me, supports the idea of having more of a growth mindset than a fixed mindset. Okay, today I'd say I'm shy or more introverted, but in the right setting, in the right team, there's muscles that I can develop that can actually make me a little bit stronger on the extroverted side and actually be good at these roles. And again, and this goes to the choice of team and choice of culture, of company that you end up deciding to work for. That's very important, because then you'll grow with them, and then companies have all these. First, there's onboarding. There's all the onboarding that I remember when I worked for a company. I learned a lot in those first few months, and then there's always these like training opportunities within, and that's the next thing, like sometimes unexpected and sometimes forced pivoting opportunities within the company that then put you out of your comfort zone, but that means that, I'm going to grow a new muscle.
Exactly, and being excited about that.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I would say most people in the industry have is that shiny eye, and that courage to take new challenges. And it's something that I do appreciate a lot, and I did appreciate in the teams that I've led or in my mentees. Every scientist have that curiosity. Otherwise, you wouldn't be a scientist. So bring that curiosity as well, and that ability to be a lifelong learner to your role when you join the industry. I think that adds a lot into your skill set overall.
Yeah, no, that's a great message, and also it's a kind of a message of inspiration for those who think sales or just working for an industry outside of academia, it's all for money, and it's all, I think what you just said could be inspiration for them to think, you know what, I'm a curious person. Maybe I'm even already thinking that academia may not be the thing I want to follow. And actually, this curiosity that I have, this curiosity that brought me to study all these years, I can still use it and make it, and leverage it in pharma, in medical affairs, or other departments, but in the industry. And I think that's an important thing, and it's important to kind of break the kind of myth that if you go into industry, or first you're going to just be working for the interests of money and capital, and two is that consequently you're not going to be intellectually stimulated, and you cannot, you're going to lose part of this potential.
Yeah, a lot of people think that I study so hard and I'm not going to use my PhD. Actually, one thing that I want to mention is that there is another part of the group, medical affairs group, that works on the publication aspect. And very rarely, but it happened to me, it happened with some people in my team, we get involved with those publications as well. So we're able to work in real world data or postdoc analysis, actually writing papers, collaborating, doing statistical analysis. So you would be surprised how much closer you're going to feel to the actual science when you join. I don't share that with a lot of people, but you're such a good host to make me so comfortable. I'm going to share this. When I joined, you mentioned financial. I thought to myself, I'm going to do this for 2 years, and I'm going to save as much money as I can, and then I'm going to go back to academia. 3 months in, I told my previous advisor and said, I'm never coming back. It's so rewarding, the work that we do. Because when you're doing science, you have all these theories that one day might impact. You're looking at this neuron, but not the neuron. It's the signaling in this type of neuron that focus on 3 cytokines that it might be implicated in Alzheimer's, which is great. Otherwise, we wouldn't have the specific targeted medications that we have. But on the other hand, in medical affairs, you are listening for MSL, for instance, firsthand from the physicians saying, wow, I started the Alzheimer's medication, and it's an anecdotal example. I started the Alzheimer's medication 6 months ago, and the lady that was not able to remember their family, now she's attending birthday parties and remember even people's ages. So it's so, at least for me, and you guys can put in the comment if there are MSLs that are, it's extremely rewarding. Or they stop you at the conference and say, thank you so much for that information. I actually shared with my colleagues, and now we're going to do a new protocol of treatment at the hospital because we were not tracking for that adverse event. It's extremely rewarding. And for me, I feel much closer to the science in a sense that is people's science, rather than, in my case, I did basic science. So I'm not putting a scale what is more important than the other. I think both are important. But on a day-to-day, I think it's extremely rewarding for people that think, oh no, I'm no longer going to do science. It's a different type of science, and it's a different type of gratitude that you have for the role that you're doing.
No, that makes total sense. And yeah, just imagine, like, when you're doing your PhD, often you're building you build this little piece of a puzzle that may even not be completed in your lifetime, and to have a kind of almost a real-time feedback from patients or from HCPs that are using your device or your drug, and that are right away telling you feedback from the use of it, and either the good or what can be improved. It must be must make it very exciting, but it's very gratifying, like you said. Now we are reaching the end of the interview, and I'm wondering first, just one thing that I think is also interesting, because people by the end of the PhD, often a bunch of us go through the feeling of maybe especially when writing comes up. Maybe I'll just drop it, and then some people do drop it at that stage. And you stopped at the very critical moment of like 6 months before finishing. How did you? And you kind of said it, that I'm going to do the work in the evenings, etc., etc. How was actually the experience of that final stretch while you were already working?
I have PTSD from it.
I can because
I was
there's only 24 hours in a day.
I was traveling, and as soon as I would get home, I would write the thesis up to like maybe 11 midnight. Every Saturday, Sunday, I would be in the lab. I actually had a final theory that I had to prove with actually animal experiment that needed to be fed the medication or everything. So on top of that, I would have to go and give them the medication, thanks to a lot of collaborators in the lab as well. The days that I couldn't go, they would just administer the drug for me. Once again, the power of networking. One of the people that worked with me in those experiments, when I got my first promotion in the industry, she got my job, and I told her, you'll be great at this. And she's still an MSL, now a senior MSL. So she knows who is that person. It was extremely hard. The same way that was extremely hard when I first got my leadership position, where I had a lot of intuitive leadership, but I never had education. I don't have an MBA. So every step of your career, it provides you with different challenges. But I always, I'm very positive about life in general. So I think that helps me a great deal in my career. And when I know it's cliche, but every challenge provides you with an opportunity. So maybe if I didn't accept that job because I was finishing my PhD, I would not be here, because the time has passed. So answering your question, it was extremely hard. I had to manage my time very efficiently. I had to be really transparent with both of my managers. A lot of people say, oh, I don't want people to know that I'm looking for another job. I know it's tricky, especially nowadays, but at least for me, I think it's very important that you're transparent with the people that you're working with. And to be honest, in that part, I was really lucky, because at that time, I had two amazing managers from one side and from the other. And even when I sent the invitation to my defense, to my pharma manager, I said, oh, it's going to be this day. We're going to have a small celebration after. Feel free if you want to come. He was like, oh my God, I forgot you're finishing your PhD. And I was like, I told you. I promised and I delivered.
That you wouldn't know.
That you would even forget. And he was like, oh my God. I was like, it literally.
It blew his mind.
And he was good for you.
That's amazing.
And yeah, so I think being resourceful, relying on people that are on your side, and being a hard worker, something that my mom used to tell me, and it's completely true, doesn't matter what you do, you're going to do 120%. And the same thing when I started with this business, I started only with an idea and a willingness to support people because I saw a gap. I saw that pharma had this expectation from people, and people that wanted to join had these dreams, but one thing was here, the other one was here, and they did not meet. So what I'm trying to do now with your MSL coach is to be a bridge, at least a bridge of knowledge. That's why I say that it's a training platform. A lot of people think that I'm a career coach, or this. I think it's a training platform that supports companies and people on career development, and of course with the focus in medical affairs. But I think this is how I grew, and how I see things is a positive mindset.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an important mindset to have. So for people who are out there right now who have listened to the interview and think, okay, maybe this domain is for me, but they're in the end of their PhD and they maybe are having these feelings of, now I have to write this thesis, and already like my mental health is suffering.
Yeah, that's really important.
But who are thinking, maybe I'll just get a job and not finish my PhD. Do you have a word of inspiration for them? And also maybe a reflection on what the PhD represents in terms of opening doors for you professionally. Because I imagine some of these positions, if you don't have the PhD, the doors don't open for you.
Most of them. So if you're this person, finish your PhD. Maybe I'm not a good example where I did both at the same time. But
you did it.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if you have to choose to finish your PhD. And not drop out at the last minute to join a company or a biotech. Because more and more, the competition is getting tighter and tighter. And you're going to see in a lot of these postings, sometimes it's preferred qualification to have a doctorate degree, but more and more I see as a requested and mandatory qualification. So you're going to decrease your ability not only to join, but to grow within the company. Because, for instance, now I'm really thinking of doing an MBA and going back to school for 2 years. So it doesn't mean like, oh, Rayana, you have so much experience, you have your own business. You don't need that. You always are going to be growing. And the fact that you might think, oh, I'm done with studying. That's not the case, because when you join the industry, you're going to keep studying, and talking to these doctors, it's almost like you have a defense all over again. So think about your defense as a rehearsal for interacting with these HCPs. And in my opinion, you did it the most difficult part, the experiment. Building your strategy, building your hypothesis, I think is the most important, the hardest part. Now writing, the problem is that when you get to writing, you're already too tired. That's it. And it's just, I don't run marathons. I had someone in my team that did, but I can imagine that those last 500 meters are the worst. But the thrill of finishing is great. So I do remember my defense. I opened a bottle of champagne, and it was a great feeling. So focus on the feeling, focus on the accomplishment phase. You've done so much. Don't give up at the last gap, at the last time, and know that your chances in the industry or outside of the industry are going to be much brighter or vast if you have a PhD beside your name. So do it. Yeah,
do it. I think it's a great message. And one thing that you did, and you were saying, oh, I'm not an example, but you're not the first person telling me a kind of story, and it's not the exact same details, but I had a conversation with someone who was needing a person for a position, and it clicked between us, but I had to finish my or there was this other contract I needed to finish, but because we had talked and we had I had networked with this person and they knew me and they really wanted me, they said, okay, finish whatever you have. We'll keep the job open for you. So also, if you're finishing and you're in this situation of, oh, I need to finish, and because I need to finish, I need to close my windows and all my shutters and not network, and that's not true, because you may be excluding yourself from opportunities, which in the end, if you were just talking and if you were just kind of networking like authentically with people, you can do both. You can finish and also at the same time have opportunities waiting for you after. What I want to say is, don't exclude yourself from opportunities because you say, oh well, I'm writing my thesis and so now I can't be looking at the job market. You can, and you can talk with it, but always be truthful. You also mentioned this. If ever you're finishing and there's 6 months to go, always mention it to the people in front of you.
Yes.
You might be surprised. They might say, 6 months, that's okay. We're actually we only just need you for beginning of next year, so it's fine.
Exactly.
So don't exclude yourself from the pool of people who might get that position
and
just because
also
you're finishing.
Brace yourself with knowledge.
Exactly.
So I would say a quarter of my mentees are in the process of finishing. So not necessarily they are applying today, but they're asking these questions that you asked me. What are my options? What are the salaries? How do I best brand myself? How does my resume should look like? So I think that they're extremely smart because they're thinking one step ahead. So they say, when I do finish, I'm not going to waste my time applying to 100 positions, never getting an interview, or I'm going to start positioning myself better on LinkedIn now. Acting, it doesn't mean necessarily applying before you finish. It can be all these other things that you can do. So when you do finish, I always say this, maybe it's something to mention. A lot of people, they pride themselves in saying, I apply for 200 jobs. I apply for 100 jobs. I think volume is not what's going to win the race for you. I think effectively and strategically applying, doing all the right things, finding who is the hiring manager, having a good package. I remember Claudia, she said, you're a magician. I was like, I'm no magician, because she said she applied for over 100 jobs, never got an interview. And we work with her application package, strategy. I don't remember, correct me if I'm wrong, Claudia, 2 weeks after, 3 weeks after. She got an interview. And she was like, what is this thing that you do?
This hocus pocus.
With the language and everything. And she got multiple interviews. She went through multiple interviews. Now I know she's focusing on her business, but that's the thing, that you can prepare yourself ahead of time. And this is what some of my mentees do. And I applaud them for that, because they're one step ahead of the game.
Yeah, you better be doing this preparation work than once you've defended, then starting to sprint or to run the marathon. It's going to be tough.
Because it's getting slower too. Back in the day, if you apply well, if you interview well, between when you start to apply to when you get the job would be 3, 4, 6 months. Now, even when you're doing all the right things, it might take a year for you to get your job. Because imagine, every company has a different way of hiring. Some companies can take up to 3 months. I've been hearing 5 interviews. So imagine, I do 3 for this one, I don't pass for the 4. I do 2 in this one, or I did 5. It just takes time, and this is not my fault or your fault. It's just how the market it is now. And having that in mind, one thing that I wanted to say is being resilient. The same way that you're resilient for your PhD, bring that resilience to the job market. I remember I had one mentee that applied for 2 jobs and got 2 rejections. And she was like, I can't take this anymore. You applied for 2 jobs. You haven't even finished your PhD. She was one of those. You haven't even finished your PhD. Like, what are you thinking? Sometimes they know I do some tough love in a sense that the reality is different. Let's learn from these rejections. What can we change? Maybe they're just rejecting automatically because you haven't finished your PhD. Let's network more. And then she was starting to get better, but be realistic with your expectations, knowing that the job market, as you mentioned, maybe because of political reasons or not, is tougher, and not giving up at the first rejection or the second one. However, not get used to them. I see people that they get to me, and they say, oh, I've been trying for 2 years and I've never got an interview. I think to myself, you never thought in those 2 years to change something. Yeah. You're using the same resume, the same approach. Like, don't continue in a strategy that's not working for too long. If you're doing something for 3 months not working, look for a professional. Look for someone to help you. Look at the new training, maybe a certification or a new way of writing yourself or new posts on LinkedIn. Just keep changing until you find that magic way that's going to work for you. So once again, going to that, not having a fixed mindset, open, grow mindset to continue to learn and see opportunities and see different strategies.
I love it. So patience, resilience,
hard
work, but also a certain creativity of, okay, this hasn't worked for like for a month. Let's change something. And it may be also let's see if someone can help me because I don't have the inspiration, or often we think we're doing a great job.
Oh yeah. And I hear that all the time. I showed my resume to 10 people. They said it was great. And now it looks completely different after, to be honest, I've saw resumes before, but now that's my job.
Yeah.
It's different when you're doing as a favor. And a lot of people do with the best of intentions with the knowledge that they have. The other thing is doing professionally. I do take time. I have a technique. I developed a protocol. Obviously, this is how it's my job now.
Yeah.
So obviously I'm going to be more thorough. Obviously, I'm going to say things that perhaps people didn't have the courage to tell you that were not as good as you thought.
Yeah.
I always tell them, you're paying me for this, and I'm going to say based on my knowledge. And all of them are super open and do the necessary changes. But I'm not the only person that works in this area, so I'm not here advertising for me as a person, but for medical affairs consulting in general, that it might be really helpful to you, because I always say, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what's the lingo. You don't know. Some people say, you're the best translator, Rayana. It's like I take something that they say and I turn into formal language, and it's light and day difference. So you don't know. You've never lived that. So a lot of times I say, give yourself some grace. Some of them say, oh my God, it was so bad. You did your best with the knowledge that you had. And I'm bringing a fresh pair of eyes with my experience as a hiring manager. But don't be too tough on yourself. A lot of people think, no, I'm no good. And which it comes from our PhD as well. A lot of people criticizing our data.
Exactly. It's a culture of looking at the most minute mistakes or faults or imperfections, and we focus on that.
Yeah.
And that then anyway it leads to perfection, to exaggerated perfectionism, and then it can shoot us in the foot. So no, it makes a lot of sense, and I think people who want to go specifically into a domain, if they find someone like you who comes from the domain and is helping people tailor their packages, etc. And I think that's a very logical and very easy concept to understand. And I think people who are interested in medical affairs should reach out to you. And that's my next question. How do people reach out to you? Where do they find you? I know on LinkedIn, but again, the name of your company is Your MSL
Your MSL Coach.
Where do they find your offer? Where, if they want to discover a little bit more about what you offer in terms of coaching, how do they do that?
Thank you. First of all, I chose Your MSL Coach for marketing reasons, but I don't only focus on MSL, is clinical affairs as well as medical affairs in the whole range. Currently, you can find me on my LinkedIn, Rayana Luna, or Rayana Luna. I also have the Your MSL page that you can follow on LinkedIn, Your MSL. There is the Instagram, your.msl.coach. The content that I share in different platforms obviously are a little different, but you can follow different ones. And the good news that I want to share exclusively here with you is that I'm working on a website and a learning platform to compile everything that I do with my mentees to be more accessible to a variety of people. So the launch is expected to be now in April, and I'm going to keep you updated on that. We might even have a discount coupon for people that follow Papa PhD. And in this platform, which is going to be under yourmslcoach.com, you're going to have modules that are up to 20 minutes, so you're not overstressing. You can learn as you go, and how to build your resume, how to best represent yourself in an interview. SPAR type of questions. I know Claudia mentioned a little bit about that. You're going to have templates that you're going to download. You're going to have a chat where you can talk to other mentees. It's almost like a sandbox within the platform that mentees can share their experiences. So I've been working really hard on that, and it's my new baby, my project, which I believe is going to be able to reach more people, because there's certain hours. I know I can stretch my hours in my day, but I can't take a large amount of mentees per week, because I do like to tailor my approach and work with them very closely. So I believe by continue to do the one-on-ones and having the Learn platform, which amount-wise is going to be even more accessible, I'm going to help
more people.
Be able to help more people. So stay tuned for the launch of yourmslcoach.com.
Yay! Amazing. So we'll you'll keep me up to date with that, and I'll see. And anyway, I'll cut this in the edit, but we'll try to. Anyway, the week you launch, we can put the episode the week after, so that people can actually go visit the link.
That's good.
Excellent. Rayana, this was amazing. I think your experience going through the pharma medical affairs journey and career evolution was really telling. It's something I didn't know. The different roles that someone can have, the way one goes from one to the other. It was really interesting to learn about that, and I'm sure and I know that it's going to be interesting for people who listen and who are curious about. MSL is the one you hear more about, but now they know that there's more. Now they know that there's actually there's paths to go from one to the other once you get in the company. So that it was really great hearing about that. I really appreciated also the details of how you managed that kind of overlap between you becoming you going into the private sector and leaving academia, which often people sometimes have a stretch where they're not employed and they're looking for a job, and it's more stressful. But you had another stress, which is I need to finish my thesis and do some experiments while I'm now starting in this new position. So it also shows that there's many things are possible. Many things can be negotiated with your employer if there's a match between you. I really also appreciated what you said about the importance of building a network made of authentic relationships and authentic conversations before you need the job, because then these matches, they may come organically even without you needing to look for a job posting. And then all your advice based on your current experience with these like 100 people that you've helped so far. I think it's all very valuable valuable information, all very actionable points also that you brought. So yeah, thank you so much for coming here, for sharing your story, sharing your wisdom, and also for kind of opening the curtain on what medical affairs is,
yes,
and why it is a good fit for PhDs, because that's also something that people don't really know.
So many people reach out to me and say, do I have to be an MD for it?
And
no, actually I would say most people are in
but
Canada.
it's a fair question, right?
Yes. So thank you for inviting me. It was such a pleasure. Well worth the 8 hours drive during rush hour from Toronto. And if you want to contact me, just send me a message. I'm always open to talking to people, and follow my posts. I try to get as much of these myths out in the things that I post both on Instagram and LinkedIn. And I'm happy to be opening these curtains because I think this is necessary for both sides. For pharma to be a little bit more transparent when hiring, what they're looking for, which techniques you should use, and for people to be more ready, because if you're more ready and I'm telling you what I need, we're wasting less time and you're more effective. So I like to think I'm a effectiveness person, in a sense that I'm helping these two people meet in a timely manner and have a better match. So really grateful for everybody that has given me the opportunity to be their mentor. So I want to thank them officially. And thank you for your time. It's been a great pleasure.
It's been a pleasure having you here. And I'm just going to add one thing. Not only people will be gaining time, but I think, and I applaud what you're doing, and what people like that are doing similar things are doing. You're also positively affecting the mental health of people. People are suffering when they get out of this degree that was so hard, and that often they're the first person in the family who have this degree, and now the family is asking, so you're not a professor, what's happened? So there's many reasons why can be mentally tough, the end of the PhD, especially if you understand you don't want to stay in academia, and so helping people figure out how to have a quicker journey into their first job,
it decreases frustration.
Exactly, it decreases frustration, and it increases the sense of realization, and a sense of, okay, I'm doing the right thing, and I'm on a path to somewhere, instead of looking back and saying, oh, I may have lost these last 5 years of my life. So
exactly.
Thank you for that.
This is when the coach part comes.
Yeah.
So people that are within their mentorship time, they have access to my personal phone number.
Okay.
I can't do that for everybody, but during their time between first and last meeting. And a lot of times they're going to say, this person answered this to me, how should I reply? Or I got a rejection, or I got the offer, how do I answer? So this, or they got frustrated, or they want to give up, or they're excited. This is when I try my best to be as present to them as possible, and not being a career coach, but pretty much a personal coach, that I say, you can do it, don't give up, use your abilities on these, or send an email like that, be more positive. So I think I represent well my brand, which is I do the MSL part, but at the end of the day, I'm also a person I tell them, your success is my success. So I want to be able to check mark you on my Excel list of mentees that you got the job. So whatever I can do to help them, I always do. And that includes mental health. You touched on a very, very important point. So whatever path you are, whether finish your PhD or in a career, trying to apply for jobs, watch out for your mental health. It's extremely important. and managing your time is a great way to do that. Surrounding yourself with supportive people and information. And this is where you come, bring information to them, which you guys should be thankful to him on that.
Yeah, they are. People who I cross paths with and I see they are always thankful. So, yeah. But today is about you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Your career, your MSL career, no, your MSL coach.
Yes.
.com is coming up. Thank you so much, Rayana. For you who's been watching or listening, thank you so much. I hope this has helped you. I hope you now have a clearer idea of what these jobs are about, of how to get there and how to get help getting there if, you've tried a couple of times and there's some secret sauce missing. Rayana has the secret sauce. All right. Thank you so much.